Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the King and Pocket Aces, brought to you by Rotoballer.com. I'm one of your hosts, Anthony Aniano, Pocket Aces, and joining me as he does each and every week for this spectacular show we put together. He's got his King hat on, his Rotoballer shirt on, the King of Fantasy Sports, Hall of Famer, Scott Engel. Scott, we get to do this every week. It's ridiculous they allow us to keep doing this, but we are blessed, that's for sure. How you doing, my friend?
Yeah, I'm not looking as sharp and slick as you, but, I enjoy doing this every week.
Yeah, comb the hair today.
It's nice seeing your hair there,
Yeah, comb the hair a little bit today. No hat. So cleaned up a little bit. And whoa! You cleaned it up. You used to have at least a little something there.
Yeah, it was about time,
Wow.
I wanted to stop looking like the Philly fanatic.
Wow. That's a clean dome there. That is
yes.
Scotty Engel. That is very Josh Hayes of you.
Sounds fair to me.
All right. So, Scott, there's a ton going on in both football and baseball. And like we always do, we'll start with the baseball news. And right now, the big news is the Fernando Tatis injury. The subluxation of the shoulder, which is a dislocation that popped right in. We also saw the video of the injury a couple of nights ago. On the 10-day DL, there's a torn labrum in there. Padres right now not saying surgery on the shoulder, but he had a similar injury in spring training as well. It is his non-throwing arm, which does help the situation. But nonetheless, if you are like me, who in the SiriusXM host league took Fernando Tatis, he fell to 1-6, and I got giddy, and now I'm miserable. You tell me, what do you do if you're invested in Tatis in that first round?
I think you find somebody who maybe feels good about him coming back in 10 days and doesn't know the complexity of the injury, and you try to trade him, but it might be hard because when you play in a fantasy baseball league, like everybody's an expert. Now, it sounded like good news because they said, okay, he can come back in 10 days. It doesn't seem major. But I actually talked to a former baseball player who actually had this injury, and he said it could only go two ways. It could either stay the same or it could get worse. And it was constantly popping out on him, et cetera, because he didn't get it operated on. Mm-hmm. And I'm just very scared of this, because Tatis, both in the field and at the plate, he's not going to scale back, I don't think. And if he does, that's going to hurt his outlook. So to me, I think you're dealing with fantasy damaged goods is the best way to put it here. You can try to play through the pain. This former baseball player I spoke to said, one day it would hurt like hell. The next day it would go away. I was doing other activities like swimming. It would pop out. So he's been dealing with this for a while. It's going to be a constant nag. So I don't know what you can get for him because in a lot of leagues, people are just too savvy in fantasy baseball to say, oh, you want to get rid of me? You must know something negative on him. You don't think I don't know anything negative on him? You're not going to get rid of him in a high stakes. Well, actually, in high stakes leagues, there are no trading. So, forget I said that. But, if you're playing for a lot of money with real serious players, and most fantasy baseball players are serious, like I've been saying, it's going to be hard to get rid of him for a good return. What you would normally get on what you drafted for him. See what you can get for him, but you're also going to have contingency plans ready because, we don't know. I hope the guy stays healthy. Don't like seeing him get injured, but, you're going to have a contingency plan and a nice backup shortstop option ready just in case.
Yeah, that's it's funny. My advice on SiriusXM with Josh Hayes the other day was exactly the same. To me, he has now become a completely unreliable source, and you are selling him probably 10 cents on the dollar. But there's as much chance as him coming back successfully this year and surviving the season than there is of him not playing again this year, right? The 10-day DL or the 10-day IL does not mean he's going to be back in 10 days. right? That's a minimum of how many days he will be out.
Right.
Okay. So people think, oh, he'll be back in 10 days. No. That's the minimum. We don't know when we're going to see him again, even without surgery. And then if there is surgery, obviously, I mean, Scott, you remember, you and I both Met fans. Michael Conforto had the same injury a couple of years ago.
We didn't see him the rest of the season.
He had surgery. He was done. He came back the following year. He was fine. It's about a 5-6 month recovery period. So, Dynasty leagues, I'm not running scared of Tatis after this.
No.
He'll be back at the very least next year if he has the surgery. And like we said, non-throwing shoulder, which does, alleviate a little bit of any concerns maybe. But at this point, if you could get, let's say, Paul DeJong for Fernando Tatis, you willing to do it?
I think I could get better than that. DeJong's going to give me some power, but that's really taking a discount there. You make a good point about Conforto, though, is, I remember the injury bothering him, and then I spoke to him early the next season, and he just said, I really don't feel anything more. The surgery was a real success. And he told me that the surgery cleared his head mentally because he was constantly thinking about it. Mm-hmm. So that was interesting insight from another major leaguer, who's had that type of injury. But, I think I need to get something like a middle of the road shortstop. DeJong has some power, but can we trust him on the batting average? We still have a lot of skepticism on him, but you throw some other shortstops out at me, and I'll think about it. But
Didi Gregorius.
Straight up for Tatis?
There is a chance. Understand what I'm saying here, Scott.
What I would rather do is
there's a chance Tatis will not play again this year.
I'd rather flip somebody to get Tatis or Gregorius. I'd like to do that.
But you understand my point here, though. There is a chance you will get nothing from Tatis.
Yeah, but you can't go out there. You can't go out there and sell them on pennies on the dollar.
Okay.
What you want to do is, I'd rather would keep him and acquire one of those shortstops in another way.
Okay.
But I'm fine going with the free agent list and picking up Kevin Newman and saying to myself, that could be a respectable sort of backup option there.
Yeah, well, Kevin Newman, Donovan Solano, whose rostership is rising each and every week. Those are players with shortstop eligibility.
But you drafted him as a franchise player. You want to get somebody significant to back him up or replace him. I'm okay with Gregorius. I think Gregorius is a nice call. He can put up some numbers there. You're not going to get a Gleyber Torres or
no. That's just it. You're not. Anybody, see, that's the point, is anybody, if you're in a league, 10-team, 12-team, and you know what, the deeper the league, the harder it will be to find the replacement on the waiver wire, right? 10-team league, you could probably get somebody.
If
12 or 14.
If I could get Dansby Swanson, I'd be happy.
And if somebody was willing to take a flyer on Tatis for Dansby Swanson, Scott, you cannot hit accept fast enough in that trade. You can't.
Because some people still might be wowed by the name of Tatis to the point where I say, okay, give me Dansby Swanson and Gregory Soto. Let's do it.
Yeah, but I mean, and that's my concern is the deeper the league, the thinner the waiver wire. Maybe in a 10-team league, if you're playing something like that, you could add a replacement and survive. But otherwise you can't. And I don't know how you overcome. I mean, Kevin Newman's a nice player. Solano's a nice player. But they're not giving you the categories. Nobody's giving you the categories Tatis is giving you. And unless you are willing to trade away a complete stud for a Lindor or a Corey Seager, trade a stud away from another position, you're in dire straits right now the way you've lost that first round pick.
You'd really hurt your team because what else would you have to give up to acquire a player like that? And some people watching this may sneer and say, I'm not giving up Dansby Swanson. What are you talking about? Remember when you were offering trades, everybody has a different perception of a player. Somebody still might be wowed and say, okay, I will take Fernando Tatis for Dansby Swanson. Then there's some people out there for Fernando Tatis. Well, it's Fernando Tatis. I want better than Dansby Swanson. But I think you have to keep your expectations in check. If there was a sort of Swanson Tatis deal on the table, I'd be strongly considering taking it. But I say, what else can you throw in here? Because it's about how you sell it. It's trades all about the sales job all the time, and say, this was my first round pick. Can you at least throw somebody else in there to make me feel better about it? What else do you need? Do you need another closer? Do you throw in a Gregory Soto or somebody like that? Can you give me a Starlin Castro? Can you give me a Manuel Margot or somebody like that?
Yeah. Now understand, if this was you and I negotiating this trade right now, I'm saying no to throwing anybody else in. Why? Because I'm in the position of power here, aren't I? You're giving me damaged goods. So that's the problem, is the person trading away.
It depends on who you're talking to. Some people might be like, oh, I just heard 10 days, not damaged goods.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, naturally, though, people are always going to be skeptical when you're trying to trade an injured player.
Right. And people are going to be skeptical when you're willing to trade Fernando Tatis. Okay. But one of the key points I wanted to get across today is understand that 10-day is a minimum. There is no timetable yet for a return for Tatis. And you're going to be scrambling. I'll be honest, in the SiriusXM host league, the best player I was able to put in place for him, not making a trade, is Dijon. He is my shortstop until I'm able to make another move. And the only thing I can hope for out of Dijon is at least come close to matching the power numbers. I know the overall numbers will not be there. Two totally different players. But give me 20-plus home runs and at least give me some type of power that I've lost from Fernando Tatis. I think that's it. But, Scott, if you're able to still pull out a victory in your league after losing Tatis, it is a ultimate season-long managing job from the fantasy team owner. Absolutely.
Yeah, and then you got to look at who's replacing him. Hae-Sung Kim, coming over from the KBO, had a weak spring, and there were question marks about him. Talking to people who cover the game or inside the game, they say Kim is a guy that may get off to a slow start because it's very difficult to adjust to when you come over from the KBO, to adjust to the high fastball in the majors. But they believe that he's athletic enough that his abilities will take over at some point. So he's somebody you have to keep on your radar.
Somebody who, if it's the best available, you got to put in a fab bid for, right? And hope he comes and gives you some type of production at that position, depending on how deep the waiver wire is. Scott, I want to talk about a couple of other players with you here who got off to scorching hot starts and might be floating around. And the buzz right now, right? Chicago White Sox, Yermin Mercedes, batting .565, 1 homer, 6 RBIs, basically just hitting everything thrown at him. And I saw in leagues an astronomical amount of fab go his way, which leads to a whole other conversation we'll get into in a minute. But nonetheless, do you buy into any of the those first weekend end of season hype players, especially a guy like Mercedes, who completely was under the radar heading into the season?
Yeah, it really depends on the player right now. Like, Tyler Naquin, 3 homers in 2 days. They're going to have to find a spot for him in the lineup, but can he keep this up? Like, as our friend Kev Mazarayan of Rotoballer pointed out with Naquin, and I'll get to Mercedes in a second, that his StatCast numbers before this year, last year, indicated that he could break out. So, but then there are other players, they get off to hot starts, and you're like, okay, can they keep this up? Can Akil Baddoo, Rule 5 pick, really keep this up? Getting off to his hot start, who's going to turn out to be Chris Colabello and who's not? That's what you have to decipher here. And I don't see that with Mercedes. A lot of good reports coming out of the minors. He could hit. They just didn't have anywhere for him to play. Very high strikeout rate in the minors, but also could hit very well for power. Our Eric Samolsky at Rotoballer did a nice piece on him at Twitter where talked about he was really nicely adjusting with 2 strikes. And a lot of people out of Chicago are saying this guy is for real. I didn't overspend with him. In Tout Wars mixed salary cap, I bid $77 on him. I didn't expect to get him. That's not a lot. And I ended up with him.
Wow.
So I think when people are not bidding over $77 in Tout Wars, I think they're skeptical, but a lot of smart baseball people, of course, there's a lot of smart baseball people in Tout Wars, seem to believe who were close to the situation that this guy is for real. We've seen Tyler Naquin fail before, but that's due to injuries. So, but with Akil Baddoo, can he keep it up? A guy had a great spring training, but he's a Rule 5 pick. There's not a lot of hype. You have to consider the players' background as well. But, Baddoo is putting Victor Reyes kind of in the rearview mirror with his hot start.
Scott, another player off to a hot start, and somebody who's actually saved me early on in a league where I have Luke Voigt as my first baseman, is Nate Lowe, now of the Texas Rangers. 3 homers, batting .381, which is unsustainable, obviously, with a .500 BABIP and a 36% K rate. But he does have 14 RBIs. Texas got him from Tampa in the offseason. He's done nothing but hit since he got there. Is Nate Lowe somebody – I personally think I trust him more than Mercedes. But what is your view on Lowe? Is he going to be able to give you some type of production throughout the season?
I think there's no doubt about the power. But, I think he's going to strike out a lot, like you indicated. And this whole Texas lineup is kind of overachieving early. We saw 2 steals from Nick Solak, which is nice. But, from where you drafted him, I think he's going to give you a pretty good return. It's exciting to see the power so far, but we have to remember that baseball is a constant game of adjustments here. And, if Solak is good, he's one of those types, he's going to be this hot this early. Pitchers are going to watch video and they're going to adjust him. And, there's going to be cold streaks and he'll have to adjust back. Obviously he's not going to be this hot all year, but I think from where you draft him, I think you're going to get a nice power and RBI return.
Yeah, and he's come in. If he ends up being your corner infielder as a cheaper source of power throughout the season, I think you're doing okay in that regard. It's got another offensive player, a veteran, older guy, 36 years old, Yuli Gurriel of the Astros. Terrible season last year, but before that, he was a 300 hitter throughout his career. I actually saw him go undrafted in 12-team leagues. Houston's playing good ball, and Yuli Gurriel is hitting like he always does, hitting over 400. Gurriel has a chance to once again be a 15 to 20 homer, 300 hitter, and he was grossly, because of the shortened season disappointment, grossly undervalued just a week ago as people were drafting.
Yeah, he was. Not the type of guy who went undrafted. In my eyes. Obviously, I like Lourdes a whole lot better. But this Astros lineup, you got to take seriously anybody who's going to be in it. And sometimes, we say we got to give a mulligan for last year. When people look at his last year and his age, they became kind of skeptical there. But I think he's showing that he's still got it. A lot of times you can't take a fantasy football type to approach to baseball players. Yes. Because a lot of times baseball players will hit later into their careers than we expect. People say, oh, he's 35. Look at Justin Turner. He's still got the bat speed.
Yeah. Scott, a couple of quick pictures, and then I want to get your take on one other thing for baseball. Tyler Glasnow. Now, everybody viewed him. We knew what he was, but he's been an injury risk and hasn't pitched a lot of innings. But he has been just flat-out dominant through 2 starts, over 11 Ks per 9. Are you all in as like somebody who can be a Cy Young candidate throughout the year? Or is Tyler Glasnow, and I've seen this on Twitter, is Tyler Glasnow a sell high candidate for you because you're worried about the sustainability of what he's doing?
As long as he's healthy, I know he's going to put the numbers out there. It was interesting because everybody talked about in Pittsburgh about how Ray Searage was a great pitching coach. But at some point, and I hate to say this about Ray Searage because he was such a darn nice guy every time I spoke to him. And, but it seems as though what he was doing kind of passed him by, and the Pirates pitchers weren't living up to their potential anymore. Came to Tampa Bay, took quantum steps forward, I believe. And to me, number two, maybe number one, excellent number two fantasy starter with number one potential. I was very happy to get him in one draft. The bidding in some salary cap leagues that I was in or saw for him was very, very spirited. I don't think we have to spend a lot of time talking about Tyler Glasnow. What you see is what you get, and it's brilliance.
All right, so you trust him. Now, what about Sandy Alcantara of the Marlins? Do you have the same type of trust in him that you do on Glasnow? Again, 12 innings, almost 13 Ks per nine, an ERA of 1.5. Alcantara's been terrific since last September. Do you have the same amount of trust in him?
Now, let me tell you something.
You tell me something.
I keep my ears open, and I listen to people that I really respect. Not only do I cover the game with credentials to talk about intangibles and stuff like that, but I listen to a lot of high-stakes players and experts that I respect. I've always been down on Sandy Alcantara. I thought he was kind of overrated. When he got to the All-Star game 2 years ago, I said, that's because the All-Star game is a joke because, overachieving in the first half. It's the first half All-Star game. That's actually what it is. But, then I spoke to a high-stakes player, I really respect, because I was kind of on the fence with Sandy Alcantara, and he told me this is going to be the breakthrough year with Alcantara. He's going to put it all together, and he's going to be the Marlins' best pitcher, and they have a nice young staff. So I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and tell you that I was a believer in Sandy Alcantara, but one or two people that I really respect that I spoke to, said to me, yeah, you're wrong if you're going to sleep on Alcantara. And he's delivered 10 strikeouts against a pretty good St. Louis lineup. Mm-hmm. The Sandy Alcantara breakout is here. I'm not going to sit here and lie and tell you that I called it, but it's here.
Yeah. I actually have him in a 12-team league where I invested in Jacob deGrom and Yu Darvish in the first 2 rounds. I got Alcantara as my starting pitcher 3 a few rounds later. I'm loving that pitching staff. Now, Scott, forget about talking about players for a minute. I see in leagues we're in, I'm seeing a ton of fab budget being thrown. I'm seeing waiver wire moves. And I watch it, and me personally, I'm kind of sitting back. I mean, we're 5 games into the season, 6 games into the season. And yet I feel like people are still playing as if it's last year and it's a 60-game sprint. What point in the baseball season do you view as the time to really evaluate your team? Because it can't be right now. You've said it to me. You yourself have said it to me. You don't even look in the standings at this point in the season. Okay? So when do you, Scott Engel, say, all right, here's what I have, here's what I don't have, and here's what I need?
I think, sometimes by mid-May, I'm usually looking at that. And you talk about who you should be aggressive on. I came right out of the gate with a league that drafted early. So it was going to be aggressive for Fab. I bid over $200 for Taylor Trammell because I wanted to have him. But then, seeing over $400 going in tout wars for Julian Merriweather by people that I really respect. And we're not even sure if he's going to be the closer. He's only done it once in the 9th inning. He's thrown 100, but they really like Jordan Romano too. I threw $88 at Brian Garcia. I already regret it. Okay, learn from my mistake. Because I had Gregory Soto, and Soto gave up the home run, and Garcia got 2 straight games, and then he came in the 5th inning. So, spending even 88, I'm kind of kicking myself a little bit. But you can't overdo it early unless you're absolutely certain about a guy. With Trevor Rosenthal out, for a while there, it looks like
potential thoracic outlet syndrome surgery.
Yeah, you want to get Diekman if somehow he's available and spend for that. If you know for sure somebody's going to be the guy as a closer, you have to go in on him. But I think you have to be careful otherwise at this point of the year.
Yeah.
Most of I think what like we talked about with the Mercedes, you're going to have to judge. Is he for real or not? Is Akil Baddoo for real or not? And I don't see people spending hundreds of dollars on those guys. Jazz Chisholm went undrafted in one of my leagues. He went for $168, which I understand, because Jazz Chisholm can steal 30, 40 bases. So it really depends on the player. But I think in most cases, you shouldn't be spending a heavy chunk of your free agent budget just yet.
Yeah, I agree. To me, it's mid-May to Memorial Day weekend. Somewhere in that period is where I seriously reevaluate my haves, my needs, and my have-nots. And to do anything drastic right now seems I think, just overly aggressive. And, you may very well drop players that you are going to regret and something to be careful of. Scott, one very quick last question before we hit the break. Are you concerned with what we saw in the first 5 or 6 days in terms of the lack of innings so many starters threw? Are we seeing a situation where starting pitchers will be lucky to get, other than the top tiers, the DeGroms of the world, are we going to see so many pitchers barely going 5 innings that middle relievers all of a sudden are going to be holding more fantasy value than we've seen in the past?
I think, we talked about this during draft season, and that those top line starters were going to be very valuable because we were going to see relievers, work a lot more innings. But, then it's going to make it for basically an even playing field, with those sort of back of the staff starters, if you will. So, but I'm not getting too many middle relievers in my lineup because they just don't get enough counting numbers for me, especially in a rotisserie league. And early in the season, we saw Rich Hill get a tandem start, Dane Dunning get a tandem start, and maybe those guys are going to be stretched out.
Well, that was my thing. Scott, for somebody who doesn't know what you mean, what do you mean by a tandem start?
Well, basically, like you saw Rich Hill and Chris Archer, that one is pretty much acting as an opener, and the two of them may be in line to, handle the bulk of the early innings.
There you go. Fair enough.
I thought Dane Dunning was going to get one. Then he had 6 strikeouts, and I reserved Dane Dunning, and I'm kicking myself for that.
Well, that's what's going to make this interesting with your back of the rotation guys on your roster is,
don't do that.
How many innings are they going to give you? Right? That's going to be the big question, I think, throughout the season with some of these guys. All right, Scott, I told you there's no such thing as a rotation in fantasy baseball. There's no such thing as a rotation.
Yeah, people always say that. And I'm sure I do a lot of bad things. It's just a stickler in my mind because I'm an editor. People say your fantasy rotation. There is no rotation. You don't put out a different starter at different days a week. It's not a rotation. It's a staff. It's like in fantasy football. There's no – can't be a running back by committee if it's 2 guys. You ever on a 2-person committee? It's a timeshare.
All right, Scott.
I'm sorry, I'm an editor by nature.
Scott correcting me like he's done for 10 years now, but I'm used to it. Fair enough. All right, Scott, when we come back, we're going to talk a little football. Sam Darnold trade fallout, a little FFPC ADP as well. Guys, don't forget, though, head over to rotoballer.com. Check out all the great content there. Baseball, football, basketball, MMA, esports, PGA, Masters is coming up. And we got NASCAR. Scott and Sean Engel do a great job handling all the NASCAR work over at rotoballer.com. Sign up for the premium packages. Promo code KING. Let them know Scott sent you. Promo code ACES. Let them know Anthony sent you. And save yourself a little bit of money. We'll be back talking football. This is the King and Pocket Aces show. Welcome back, everybody, to the second part of the King and Pocket Aces. Anthony Aniano, Scott Engel with you. We broke down all the fantasy baseball. Now it's time, Scott, to take a look at the NFL. And the big news over the last couple of days, the Jets finally move on from Sam Darnold, trading him to the Carolina Panthers for 3 draft picks, including a second-round pick a year from now. Makes Teddy Bridgewater potentially available out of Carolina, kind of cements what the Jets are going to do. Looks like Zach Wilson's going to be the next quarterback of the Jets. But let's start with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold as a Carolina Panther. Does that excite you as the quarterback of the Carolina Panthers from a fantasy perspective? Somebody who's now on your radar to be potentially drafted this coming draft season?
In a 2-quarterback league, in a super flex, yeah. In a single quarterback league, I still have to be more convinced. Now, we all know, that the line is, and I believe in that, the narrative is that, the Jets didn't surround him with any talent, he had bad coaching, etc. This all changes, going to Matt Rule's team with Joe Brady as offensive coordinator, and he's already got playmakers around him even before the NFL draft. He's got Christian McCaffrey. He's got Robbie Anderson, who he worked with before and, has made some big plays with before as well. He's got DJ Moore. He is already the offensive line is the issue, but after the trade they made, they probably going to I would expect them to address the offensive line in the draft, whether it's number 8, whether it's trading back, get some pieces, because right now it's just kind of patchwork in the short term. Protection was an issue for him with the Jets, but this is already a better situation for him from a dynasty perspective, and from a super flex perspective, it's just a very toxic environment. A lot of comparisons to Ryan Tannehill getting out of Miami and away from Adam Gase. Now he has the potential to do this. There's no way you're going to draft him in a 10-team league, but it certainly piques your interest. As a football fan, something to watch, but from a fantasy perspective, super flex, dynasty, 2-quarterback leagues, he's going to be very interesting if you wait till later for that second quarterback or even draft him as a third.
Is Sam Darnold, let's talk dynasty format here. Are you looking to buy him right now? Okay, trade for him in a dynasty format? Or if you have him, are you seeing opportunity potentially to sell him a little higher, trade him a little higher than you thought you probably could have if he was a Jet?
He's still very young, and
23.
They're going to build talent around him right now. So it really depends on what I have to give up. In a dynasty league, if I don't have to give up a pick within the first 3 rounds or something. It depends. Am I playing super flex or not? Because
let's go standard first.
Yeah,
not super flex. 1 QB.
In standard, I'd give up a late draft pick for him. To see what happens there, because you never can tell. I remember when Josh Allen came out, nobody wanted to draft him in my dynasty league. I got him in the 3rd round. Now it's either him or Aaron Rodgers as my starting quarterback. Of course, I'm the defending champ in that league because I do things like that. King.
King. That's it. Yeah. You don't get that league. You don't get that nickname by accident, people. Come on now.
I didn't give it to myself. Okay. Yeah. My original producer on SiriusXM, Mike DeMurgis, gave me that nickname.
There you go. I did not know that.
Yes. Thank you, Mike. Anyway, my long-winded answer on Sam Darnold. I'd see what I can get for him. If I get anything better than the 5th-round pick in a dynasty league, I'll consider it.
Okay. In a dynasty league, who would you rather have? Sam Darnold or the kid replacing him, what we're assuming will replace him, Zach Wilson, who we think will be the New York Jets quarterback?
I'd probably go for Wilson just because of better mobility.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because I would say Sam Darnold, and primarily because that's still, and I understand it's a whole new regime over there from the GM.
What about the mobility of Wilson, though? Doesn't that give an advantage to you?
I don't trust the Jets. Scott, they have not had a viable quarterback in over 50 years since Joe
Right,
Namath.
that's true.
So
what about Wilson's mobility though? You're just looking for fantasy numbers.
It's useful for fantasy numbers, but as of right now, he still doesn't have. I like Corey Davis, but I don't love it. I still don't love the receiving core there. Carolina's still got a better receiving core. Okay, he has the Tevin Coleman. I know it's short term, and we're talking dynasty, but Tevin Coleman right now is the Jets' running back unless they do something in the draft.
They'll probably draft somebody.
But nonetheless, I look at Sam Darnold with that DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey, and heck, with Christian McCaffrey, Sam Darnold could check down to McCaffrey all day and put up pretty respectable numbers. I just think at 23 years old, right? We're not talking about – it's a different – people make the comparison to Tannehill. I don't think it's the same because Tannehill was already 28, 29 years old at that point.
I think they just make the comparison as to getting out of a bad situation.
I get it. You escaped Adam Gase, so I get that. But Sam Darnold at 23 is the same age as guys being drafted now, right? That's, to me, a huge thing that he could just almost erase that whole Jet regime and completely start over as a 23-year-old for Carolina. I just find that so tempting in a dynasty format. I agree with you. In a one QB league, I don't have any value. You see how it goes. You put a waiver wire bid on him if you need him. Okay, but that's why in a one QB league, quarterbacks are grossly undervalued because Sam Darnold will be there on the waiver wire. But nonetheless, in a dynasty league, if I could get Sam Darnold for a fourth-round pick, I'm doing that in a heartbeat, Scott.
Yeah, I would do it too.
You know, and if somebody wants to pay me more if somebody wants to pay me a second or third, and I have Sam Darnold, I would strongly consider making that trade. It's all about the compensation.
If somebody's going to give me a second or third for Sam Darnold, I'll be like, here. But
here, he's all.
It could look silly in 2 years because, like you said, he's 23 years old. Let's take the Jets as like a bad college experience.
Yeah, that's my point exactly. It was a bad college experience. He changed schools. He went and got his master's degree, and now he's growing up. Okay? That's what he has the opportunity to do in Carolina.
He got a master's in losing.
I mean, my God. But that's exactly what it is. All right. So any interest in where Teddy Bridgewater ends up? Do you have any concerns or interest on where Bridgewater goes? I
think he can go somewhere and maybe compete. If Denver doesn't trade up, maybe they bring in Bridgewater to compete with Locke or, his veteran insurance. Houston would be a very good landing spot, I think, because how much can you trust Tyrod Taylor as a starter? We've never seen that. Miami,
that's someplace I said as well, yeah.
If Tua doesn't pan out. And then maybe Pittsburgh, because Roethlisberger, maybe 1 year left, and then Bridgewater becomes a starter. Something like that. Washington and Chicago pretty much out of the mix, though, because Fitzpatrick, they brought him in. Why would they bring in Bridgewater? Dalton versus Bridgewater. I'd take Bridgewater, but still, how much difference really is there? Could he go back to the Jets maybe to back up Zach Wilson? I think Bridgewater wants to compete for a starting job somewhere.
Yeah.
So somewhere like Miami or Denver, because, if Tua doesn't pan out, et cetera, Locke already hasn't panned out. So there's something to look at there.
How bad does this look, in my opinion, for the Chicago Bears? When you look at what Carolina gave up for Sam Darnold, okay, the best pick is a second-round pick next year. And Chicago was so all in on Russell Wilson, who we said was an unachievable dream, and they settled for Andy Dalton. A month ago, potentially Chicago could have given a slightly better package than Carolina did, and at least said, all right, we'll roll with Sam Darnold and see if he gives us a better chance than Andy Dalton, right?
Yeah, there's certainly more promise there. They had the capital to do it. And like I said all along, the Wilson trade just wasn't happening. It was nice and fun for everybody to think about a blockbuster involving a elite quarterback. But when you look at all the draft capital that gets thrown at quarterback and that the first 4 picks might be quarterbacks and what the 49ers traded to get a quarterback, etc. Why is Seattle going to give that up?
Yeah.
They already have the answer to a problem that so many teams in the league have.
Yeah.
Why are you going to give yourself a hole at quarterback when it is the biggest position that everybody chased? There was no way in hell it was ever happening with the Bears, because the Bears couldn't offer a quarterback back in return or the avenue to a quarterback.
Yeah. And now you look at what.
Why would you give up a franchise quarterback? Even before all these allegations, the Texans dug in publicly and said, we're not going to trade him, because that is so difficult to get. It makes so much sense for the Seahawks. I don't care what anybody says outside the situation, to work things out with Russell Wilson, do what he wants, because you get rid of him, you set the franchise back.
Yeah.
And for anybody, don't at me and say that he won a Super Bowl because of the defense in the running game. It's a team sport. Before Russell Wilson was drafted, the Seahawks had the Legion of Boom and Marshawn Lynch, and they won 7 games. Bam. Not happening.
All right, Scott, let's talk for a few minutes before we got to wrap this up. A little FFPC Dynasty Startup ADPs, thanks to Fantasy Mojo, who's been compiling these ADPs. And I want to talk right now, and we'll do this maybe potentially over the course of the next couple of shows. I want to focus right now on the running back position. And I look at the fantasy ADPs, and right off the top, Christian McCaffrey 1, Jonathan Taylor sitting number 2, currently going as the second running back off the board, second overall pick in these FFPCs. He's going ahead of Saquon Barkley, which I can understand, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara. Okay, Jonathan Taylor, second year back. Your thoughts on him currently being the second player off the board in these FFPC Dynasty startups?
And let's remind you that if you want to get one of these Dynasty startups at the FFPC, you go to rotoballer.com/FFPC, and you get a nice discount. They have regular Dynasty startups. They have Superflex, and they have the new RotoViz Triflex Dynasty startups as well, whereas it's just Superflex and 3 flexes. So, and of course they have Best Ball Slim, which cuts out the kickers and the defenses as well. So a lot of options from our friends at the FFPC. I was talking with Eric with Eric Balkman of the FFPC on SiriusXM this week, and we were going over this as well. He understands like you understand, but for me, I think people overemphasize youth a little bit, even in a high-stakes arena. And to me, I want somebody more proven. Obviously, Taylor looks really good, but Marlon Mack is coming back.
Yes.
They do have Naheem Hines. And, Eric told me that he's spoken to a lot of high-stakes players like, Mack had a big knee injury. I don't think you can fully write him off. It could be some sort of a committee there. And for me to bet another 2-pick overall on a guy that has yet to do it for a full 16 games, I'm not in on that. Now, I have a little credibility. I did win my FFPC Dynasty startup last year, okay? That's because I went with proven running backs over the rookies. I wasn't going for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, especially when I landed Derrick Henry in the 3rd round. So, I ended up with Kamara and Henry at running back and getting James Robinson later on in double-figure rounds for quite a backfield for a trio there. But, my point being is I prefer a combination of something that's proven and an upside. So if I'm sitting there at 2, especially in an FFPC league where I'm getting extra points for tight end scoring, I might go Travis Kelce.
Yeah, I mean, understandable, doable, but and I like your point about the young running backs, and that leads me to my next question. When I look at this ADP, the first 7 picks on average are running backs. Jonathan Taylor 2, Barkley 3, Cook 4, Kamara 5, and this is where it took another interesting turn for me. Cam Akers going on average as running back 6 and 1-6, and DeAndre Swift going as 1-7, running back 7. Understand what this means. They are going on average 4 to 5 picks before Nick Chubb, and 4 to 5 picks than Derrick Henry, who's going right now at 112, running back 9. Okay? Listen, I know Derrick Henry has a lot of, miles on the tires, but Derrick Henry has been the most dominant running back in the NFL the last 2 seasons. There's just no other way around that. Scott, again, second-year running backs going against more proven guys like Chubb and Derrick Henry. A bit of a surprise to you?
Well, Chubb kind of shares a backfield, so I'm okay with that. Derrick Henry's nowhere close, longer to the line. How many good years do you think you get more out of Derrick Henry?
Minimum 2.
Minimum 2.
What do you think?
How old is he now? Let's see.
Not even 30.
Not even 30. How many years has he been a starting running back with a heavy workload?
Well, that's it. Remember, even when they had him,
it's not always about age.
Right, exactly. So when I look at Derrick Henry, okay, Derrick Henry right now is, let's see, let me get this, make sure I get this right. Derrick Henry is 26 years old. Right. He has been in the league 5 years. Right. In his first year, he only carried the ball 110 times. In his second year, he only carried it 176.
Right.
Year 3, when we were begging for him to become the guy, and the first time he went over 1,000 yards, he only carried the ball 215 times.
Right.
It's just over the last 2 seasons with 303 and then 378 attempts that Derrick Henry has seen really a full season workload. And be mindful of the fact that even with those attempts, 681 rushes over the last 2 years, he has missed 1 game. 1 of those 2 years.
And with the physical way that he plays, it's amazing. So thanks for giving me all those numbers because I didn't quite know them off the top of my head, which I guess I got to go back to the drawing board. I should be embarrassed. No, I'm kidding. But with Derrick Henry, when you tell me those numbers and you remind me of the age, I'm saying he's probably got at least 2 to 4 good years left. I would probably put it in the middle at 3. And people always criticize Henry because he doesn't catch passes. You throw a pass in his direction, it bangs off the side of his helmet pretty much. But, like I used to say with Marshawn Lynch, people would overrate that because the running numbers are so dominant, they compensate for any shortcomings that he has as a receiver, and the compilation of it is it's so productive. And you can't look too far ahead. Like people might be saying to themselves, well, I'll probably get a good 6 years out of Cam Akers and another maybe just 1 or 2 out of Derrick Henry. You can't look too far into the future. Yeah. I want to win now, and I want to win for the next 2 to 3 years. And to me, Derrick Henry's already proven to do that, and he can do that going forward for at least another 2 to 3 years.
It's funny looking at these ADPs, and I don't want to keep hopping on the same thing, but guys who haven't even played, guys you don't even know what team they're going to be on. Okay, players entering the draft in just a couple of weeks. Najee Harris, pick 17, running back 11. Okay, Travis Etienne, pick 24, running back 15. You know who they're going before? They're going before Aaron Jones, who just re-upped with the Green Bay Packers and will remain the running back of the Packers. Now, you could say A.J. Dillon is there. I'm worried about a time. Green Bay Packers aren't breaking the bank for A.J. Dillon if they didn't have him as the primary. Dillon will get his touches, but Aaron Jones will still be there.
How many running backs actually dominate their carries? There's always some second running back taking a few away to keep fresh and keep the defense off balance.
But you're drafting players who you don't even know what team they're going to be on before Aaron Jones.
People are shooting for youth and upside. It becomes a bar for people, a crutch to lean on. Youth and upside over proven ability. I think you should be somewhere in the middle when you're doing that. Like the first receiver off the board right now is Justin Jefferson. I think, in FFPC Dynasty startup ADPs, I mean, he's coming off a great rookie year, but
before Devontae Adams?
He's going before Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, DK Metcalf, who's got a year on him and a better quarterback situation. You know, to me, that's pushing youth up the board a little bit too much. I like Justin Jefferson, but I'm not ready to say that he's going to be more explosive than Tyreek Hill. And, you know, that's what some fantasy players do in their mind. And I'm not trying to criticize the FFPC players because there's a lot of good players out there. And a lot better than me, too.
Absolutely.
You know, more than successful. But, you know, I'm pretty good at this, too. So my point being is that, you know, people are going to sometimes look at an age and think like 31 or 32 is old for a wide receiver, or 30, and it's not. You know, Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams, very proven at a high level. We've seen this only 1 year from Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
We've seen it 2 from Metcalf. You want to take Jefferson over Metcalf? I can see that. But to take him over Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill already, I'm just not with it. And neither was Eric Balkman.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. One last player I want to ask you about, and I want to come back to this ADP next week as well if we can. But one last player I want to ask you about before we wrap up for the day. Joe Mixon. Gio Bernard was released by Cincinnati. Not that he was a major cut into Joe Mixon's playing time.
Yeah.
Not a factor, but nonetheless gives a little hope that maybe Joe Mixon is healthy this year. Currently going overall 35, running back 20. Okay? Still under 25 years old is Joe Mixon. Is Joe Mixon still somebody in this type of format you're willing to invest in? Or has he kind of disappointed enough that you're looking to move on?
Like you say, he's still young. He's been hurt. Joe Burrow's been hurt. Giovanni Bernard getting cut doesn't matter. You know, he's a complimentary back who can't do it when he's asked to play extensively. So that's neither here nor there for me when it comes to my Joe Mixon analysis. I think you're getting a little bit of a value on Joe Mixon. He's versatile. And with a healthy Joe Burrow, that offense is going to be improved. He's going to finish off a lot of scoring drives for a team that's going to throw a lot. So I like it. I think he's a value. I still have faith in Joe Mixon. I don't know. I don't think there's anything that I've seen from him that I can put him on superstar level, but I think he's a very nice running back number 2.
Joe Mixon or James Robinson? You're on the clock.
Ooh.
They're going back to back. That's why I ask.
That's a tough one for me, but James Robinson has just shown me this 1 year, but they really didn't bring anybody to compete with him. I know Mixon is more versatile. It's very close, but I think I'd lean James Robinson.
Me too. I think he showed the ability to catch the ball and be a 3-down back and stayed relatively healthy throughout the year as well. All right, everybody. That's going to be it for this episode of the King and Pocket Aces, brought to you by Rotoballer.com. Head over to Rotoballer now. Sign up for the MLB Premium Package. Use the promo code KING, promo code ACES. Save yourself a little bit of money. Check out all the great content there. Our NASCAR coverage, Scott and Sean doing all of the great work there. The PGA coverage as we head into the Masters as well. Scott, as always, my friend, this has been a lot of fun. Thanks for watching, listening, wherever it is you tune into the show, everybody. Stay smart, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.